everybody. In this video, what I want to do is give some pointers on some of the aspects of formatting in the weekly analyses. Some people have been asking me, how do I insert page numbers appropriately? What are the proper margins? What's the font supposed to be? How do I insert a footnote? I want to go over all those things in here and more in this quick video that shows you how to do some stuff for formatting, not only for this class, but possibly for other classes as well. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to remind you of here is in Blackboard, go to the Assignments tab, go to Weekly Analyses, and sure, now Weekly Analysis 1 is done, but then there's Weekly Analysis 2, and what you've still got are these example weekly analyses. Again, remember this one's not great, this one's meh, and this one's pretty good, but then you also have this paper formatting exemplars that shows you what the formatting should look like. So make sure you've downloaded that, and I'm going to be comparing that to what I'm going to be doing here in a moment as well. So just click on that, download it, have that ready to go. All right, so I've got the formatting exemplar up. The first thing that you should do is go in here to the Review tab and Show Markup. Make sure those comments are there. And Reviewing Pane, you put this on the left. This has all my little bits of writing advice in here throughout. And so when you click on these things, it'll also show you in the text, like, oh, here's how you do this, and here's how not to start your first sentence. Or so I've got this whole list of comments that have advice over here on what to do. And then if you click on these, it'll show you in the text where I'm referring to this thing. So make sure to indent each paragraph. There you go, because this person didn't start a paragraph here, so they need to, in this hypothetical scenario, so they need to indent the paragraph. So just like these are indented, this is the appropriate amount of indentation. What you do is when you get on a line, if you want to start a new paragraph, I'll just do it here. Press Enter, and then just press Tab. Bam. That's the appropriate indentation for each paragraph. That one's pretty simple. I want to show some other things in here too, and so I'm going to just start a new document, and from there I'll show you how to do some things. So let's just do this here. Let's go to File. I'm going to go to New. And we just want a blank document. So here we go. Got this. We don't need the comments for this. The comments was just for the other document that shows you how to do stuff. So here, the first thing that I want to do here is actually show you how to properly insert page numbers, because some people have been confused by this. So let me go ahead and show you. So the first thing you're going to do is you go up here to the Insert tab, and you go to Page Numbers, and we're going to top a page, and it's going to be this one right here, top right. Bam, there it is. Then what you do, this is, see here in the header. See, sometimes people have been doing this thing where they just like manually insert it here, and then it can it'll go to all kinds of weird places. You see it's not lined up right or anything. It'll do this. So we don't want to do that. We want to have it up here in the header, and if I double click up here, you can see it's up here. Then what you do is just go ahead and pop your last name in there. Bam. Now what that will do is now if I just keep pressing Enter, look, as soon as I get it, bam. Page 2, it's already there. Page 3, it's already there, and so on. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, you said on there that page 1 is actually the first page and there should be a cover page. I did. Well, how do you do that? So if we go back up here to the Insert tab, go to Page Number, and we go to Format Page Numbers, here's what you do. First of all, click this Start button here and go 0. Okay, so now the first page is 0, and now the next one is 1. But that's not all. What you also want to do is click here in the header and go different first page. Bam. Now look, there's no page number on the first page, even though it's numbered as rendered as 0. And look, burst 1, burst 2. If I just keep going, if I press Enter again, next page, there it is, burst 3. So go ahead and do that for you, and it's in the header and it won't screw up. So that's how to insert page numbers. Then, well, okay, what about this cover page? So what I'm going to recommend doing is actually going back to that paper formatting exemplar and go to just the cover page that's there. And we're just going to copy all of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and I'm just going to, on the page 0, paste. There you go. There's your cover page. It's good to go. And so let's go through this. We'll call it, I'm just going to put here, okay, Weekly Analysis 2. You can totally put in a title of what you're working on if you want to here. So where it says cover page for Chicago Manual Style, you do not need it does not need to say Chicago Manual Style there. So you can put, let's see, you're working on, okay, Natural Law. That's fine. Okay, author's name. Me, in this case, that's me. Okay, instructor's name. Well, for our purposes, I'll put me again. Okay, and then either when you wrote it or when you want to say that you wrote it. So if you want to say, sure, yes. June 25th, 2022. Great. It's in the future. That works. And then this is here as a placeholder. This class is actually PHI 110 Introduction to ethics. Cover page is done. None of this stuff needs to be repeated on page 1. So what you should do, I'm fine with you on the very first line, putting weekly analysis to, and then your subtitle, and then enter. Make sure it's left justified. And so sometimes people keep writing this thing where everything's center justified like this. Don't do that. Make sure that the actual body that you write is left justified. And that's this button here. You're on the home tab, this button right here. Left justifies everything. Start your first paragraph, tab. In this paper, whatever. And then just to show you that it will indent, if I say, I'm just going to keep saying things. Let me quote Immanuel Kant, act only on that subjective maxim that you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. All right, so the indentation here is fine. So the beginning of a paragraph, it should have that space there, and all you have to do to make that is just literally press tab at the beginning of every paragraph. Now, this is actually not formatted correctly right now. So also what we need to do is this. Highlight this, and then this thing right here is the line spacing between lines. So look like we can really spread it out a little bit, double spaced. So that's 2.0, bam. So now this is the appropriate spacing. Now notice here also on the actual first page of the paper, it starts right here at the top. So sometimes people will fill in other things in here too. They'll put again, their name and the date and, you know, their favorite color. None of that. Just go ahead and like write, no spaces, get right into it. Then between paragraphs, if you're starting a new paragraph, return tab. New paragraph. Okay. Same thing again. Return tab. Every time you start a new paragraph, and you should, every time you have a new idea, that should be a new paragraph. That's how you do that. It's double spaced. And also, here's another thing that if you're a little bit older, this is probably something that's an adjustment. And I know it was an adjustment for me when people started doing this. Because we don't use typewriters anymore. When you're done with a sentence, you put a period, one space, then start the next sentence, and then period, one space. Some of you, and this goes back to something you may have learned earlier in life. I know I did. Well, and it comes from using typewriters to make sure they wouldn't jam. You would hear at the end of a sentence that double clack, all right, to put two spaces in between sentences. Nope. Just one. That's how that works. Also, sometimes when you're throwing a quotation mark out there, so let's say someone says something like, Socrates, know thyself. Notice that that's an exclamation mark. Notice that the punctuation is inside the quotation mark. So one thing you might see me say a lot is, hey, this period, this comma, this exclamation mark, whatever you have here, it needs to be within the preceding quotation marks, not after it. So that's one thing. Another thing is I've seen a lot of people have done this, and that is to use the second person general in academic writing. So something like this. If you really think about it, and the exemplar says this too. Now, if you do that, if you do this, I'm going to say right here, do you mean me? Are you referring to me? And you'll probably see, I'll say me, question mark, avoid the second person general in academic writing. What is the second person general? It's saying you, generally speaking, like this. If you really think it, are you talking to me? Or are you talking about to anybody that could read this? Who are you talking to? And that's something in academic writing we want to avoid. You can use the first person. That's fine. Like, I think this. You can use the third person. They think this. He thinks this. She thinks this. All those things are fine. The second person general you want to avoid. Now, if it's in a quotation, if you're quoting Thomas Aquinas and he says, you should do this, that's fine. But in your writing, and yes, I'm addressing you right now in the second person, but not the second person general to anyone. I'm specifically addressing students of this class. So instead, what do? If you really think about it, you have to put it in the subjunctive mood, which is weird, but you basically do this instead. If one really thinks about it, which sounds a little bit more awkward when we're speaking, but in academic writing, this is much more appropriate. So avoid the second person general, use one instead of you. And so you have to say one thinks, one finds, if one were to think about it, that kind of thing. And then the last quick thing that I want to point out is the notion of footnotes and citations. So actually, if you look at the exemplar, so in the exemplar, if you go to the last page, you'll see there's the works cited page. And this is what, if you use any citations whatsoever, this is what the works cited page should look like. It shows you how to do pretty much everything. And the notes have commentary in the footnotes of how these things should look. But if you have anything that you are getting any information, whether you're quoting, paraphrasing, alluding, it needs to have a citation. Okay, whether it's a website, book, and pretty much everything that you can think of is here. So how do I cite a book? Bam. How do I cite a TV show? Bam. A book that has a bunch of stuff by one author. There it is. How do I cite one of the lectures of class? There it is. If I were in an in-person lecture, there you go. How do I cite a movie? Bam. From a journal article, an edited collection with a bunch of different translations, another collection, another collection, another collections where you have multiple editors. Here's how to do a website. Now, notice in the works cited, last name, first name, title of the piece in quotes if it comes from something else. So in a journal or a book or even a website that has a name, okay? Put that in italics after it, basically the date, and then if it has page numbers, and years, okay, in the works cited page. Now, all of these also have corresponding footnotes. So whenever you cite something, this should be on the back end for sure, but it also should have a footnote on that very page. So any of these things here, let's see, I've got something here early on where these things are quoted. So for example, here I just said, here's something, just a sentence I put in here. Marcia faces an ongoing divorce in one particular episode of American Crime Story. Notice that the title is italicized. That's something that you want to do too. And then there's a footnote here, and this little thing will pop up if you hover over it in Microsoft Word, the actual footnote. And then down here is the actual footnote. Now you'll notice this is slightly different than what it looks like on the end. So this is the form for all those same things that are there. And generally speaking, you'll notice that in the footnotes, things are first name, last name, comma. And then it kind of follows the same pattern, except it's separated by commas. So if I look at this thing here, Alan Silverman, this thing here, first name, last name, it's in quotation marks, comma. And you'll notice here, since it's not a quotation as such, someone's not speaking this, the comma is outside of the quotation marks. Italicized title, comma, date, comma, URL, comma. Sometimes people will just put in like the URL or something like that. That is not in accordance with the Chicago Manual style. So if you see me say that too, like, hey, that's not in accordance with the Chicago Manual style, what's that? That's something we have in the library. That is the stylistic manual that shows what this should look like. And this is basically a shortened version of that, this whole document here. So here's how this looks. So if I quoted something or referenced to something, in this case, it was just an allusion. I'm not quoting the show, okay, about Marcia here. I'm saying something about the show. So bam, there's the footnote. And then if I go to the works cited page, Silverman, there it is as an endnote. You'll notice last name, first name there, separated by periods instead of commas. So it's slightly different, but you should have a footnote on the page that it occurs on, as well as an item here on the works cited page as well. Both those things should be there if you incorporate any sources of any kind. If you don't do that, you don't need to do it. All right, but then, okay, how do I insert a footnote? Let's go into that. So back in my little model here, how do you insert a footnote? Well, you can do it two ways. You can go at the end of a sentence. So let's say here, know thyself, right here. Let's say if I wanted to put a citation right there. So at the end of that sentence, after any punctuation, what you can do, if using a PC, you just hit CTRL+ALT+F. And that automatically makes the footnote. Notice it already made like a little number 1 there. And it puts something down here. So this is where your stuff goes. So the author here, in this case, Plato wrote that down. He wrote it down in, I don't remember the exact work. I'm just going to put Republic here so I've got something. And then you put the rest of the stuff there. So where did it come from? Well, that copy, HarperCollins Publishers, 1997, page 45. That is not where that came from. I'm just putting that down there to show you. This is what a footnote looks like. I do not want any parenthetical references, even if you put the footnotes in there too. So don't put up here like, oh, Plato, 45. None of that. Okay, there is a version of Chicago Manual Style and MLA that allow for that, but that's not what you're doing. And it says so on the assignment. So no parenthetical citations, footnotes like this. Then you would still have on the works cited page afterwards. Let's say this is my last works cited page. What I put in here is Plato, period, Republic, period, HarperCollins, 1997. Now, the great thing about doing the Control-Alt-F, the insert footnote thing, is even if I put one before, okay, this is my number 1. So sometimes people will go, oh, well, I have to manually insert a 2 here. No, you don't. Watch. If I put one before it, let's say like right here, I'm going to stick a footnote on the end of the sentence, okay? Control-Alt-F. Bam. Notice it makes it number 1. It's already done the numbering for me. You don't have to stick any of this stuff in the footer down here yourself. The footnotes, when you insert like this, insert properly already. Okay, the final thing that I want to show you in Blackboard is this. It's going to look a little bit different from me because it's from the professor's perspective, so my Blackboard is a little bit different. But what you can do is if you go to your graded assignments, go and don't do this in the app on the phone because it won't show up right for this. But if you go to your assignment and you go to the weekly analyses and you go to where you turned it in. And you actually open up the assignment. What you'll see here, if you scroll down, is you will see your paper with my comments on it. So some people have been asking, I'll say something over here like, make sure you read my comments. And some people have been like, where are my comments? All right here. So I'll make marks. And just because something is in red does not mean that it's necessarily wrong. I'm just saying that's where I'm tagging my comments. So if you see something in red, I'll say over here, oh, here's what I'm referring to. And it'll actually light up and show you what's going on. So if I click on this one, where I say indent paragraph. Well, this person here, this thing that's highlighted, this person didn't indent that paragraph. So that's why this has been marked up. But also something might be marked up where I just made a comment like where I agree with you or something like that. All right, so that's been this video on a couple of tips and tricks for what to do on your weekly analyses and also how to review those comments. If you still have additional questions, please do reach out to me via email or on Discord. Have a good one.